Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So, today we're going to be doing a post mortem on the mainstream media because they played a big role in this election. They were basically the second arm of the Clinton campaign. And it was very interesting to see multiple news organizations, as well as newspapers, get it wrong. I touched briefly on this on my last video about many people basically having on-air meltdowns. And this is what happens when people didn't look objectively and cover the news accurately and fairly, so the viewers and the American voters could have gotten a clear and concise picture and knew what they were getting themselves into going in this election. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. It seemed that American political discourse in 2016 especially seemed to be running in two parallel worlds. You had the mainstream media, which was your traditional television, your paper newspapers, online news organizations, as well as radio, versus social media, the age of Reddit, 4chan, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It was very different in the way both candidates ran their campaign, and the media could not handle it because and the reason why I say this is the media was not being objective. And as I said before, we are subjective by nature. But as journalists, it is your job to accurately cover each candidate. You have to display the good and the bad. You have to let the people decide. You shouldn't be trying to tip the election in one favor, in one political party or one political candidate's favor. And that's what we saw the media do in this election. They threw out all their journalistic integrity. And what you had on social media was many people who were Trump supporters, as well as people who were not Trump supporters, but who were just wanting to put out correct information so people can get a clear, concise idea of what is going on, basically corrupting the record. Just saying, look, what they're telling you is not true. Here's the full information. And what you had was such a parallel and such a divide that many people on the internet and people who were in alternative media, myself included, you had people like H.A. Goodman, Tim Black, Styx, many people reporting that, look, the way things look like they're headed, Donald Trump will win. You had many people in the mainstream media telling a false narrative where the data and the facts didn't match up. One of the biggest losers of the night, in my opinion, was Nate Silver. I think he basically flushed his career down the drain because he decided he didn't want to go by numbers and facts and decided he wanted to be partisan. And I think one of the problems with Nate Silver was he was using the model of 2012 to try to base and make his guesses on how people were going to turn out and how they were going to vote in 2016. I mean, even on election day, he had Donald Trump at what, like 30%, 31%, if I remember it correctly. But then went on television saying that Hillary Clinton was one swing state away from losing the election. So which was it? You'd seen in the last couple of days that he was trying to change up his story so he can save face. Basically, you had the Huffington Post, I think, which did atrocious writing this whole election cycle, had Donald Trump at like 2%. I mean, the polls were flawed. The most accurate poll, I think, this whole election was the IBD poll. I think that was the most accurate poll. So the first video that I'm going to show you guys is a video about Van Jones from CNN. He is a political commentator. Now, I touched briefly upon this incident yesterday in my previous video, but I want to show you guys it in full context, and then we're going to discuss.
You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country? I have families of immigrants that are terrified tonight. This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president, in part.
Instead of going off of emotions, Mr. Van Jones should have went off of facts. He said this was a white lash against the changing demographics of the United States. So let me give you guys some facts. White people make up 77.1% of the population. African Americans make up 13.3%. American Indians make up 1.2%. Asians make up 5.6%. And Hispanic or Latinos make up 17.6% of the population. So it wasn't a white lash, sir. White people just came out to vote more in this election than they normally do. Now, he said this was a repudiation against President Obama because he was black. No, this was a repudiation of President Obama because he had many failed policies that the American people did not support. He extended the George Bush drone program, which is illegally assassinating people without due process across seas. He was trying to push forward the most egregious bill against the American people, the TPP, which would decimate what's left of our manufacturing industry and allow corporations to sue our government. You see, these are the things that people take into mind, and even if people weren't abreast to all of these issues, okay? Look at what these people in these small towns see. Now, they don't live in the big cities. These people, all of them don't live in LA or New York or Miami or Atlanta. All these people don't live in these big cities, Seattle. Some of these people live in small towns, and they see their jobs disappearing, and they see their livelihood slipping away from them. So what are they going to do? They're going to vote for someone who represents change. And in this election, Donald Trump was the change candidate. People need to start realizing that. You can't keep calling all of these people racists and bigots and homophobes. The Obama coalition from 2008 and 2012, these same people in these battleground states, which came out to vote for President Obama in droves, voted for Donald Trump. So all of these people are suddenly racist? No, all of these people were tired of what was going on. Another important element of the mainstream media is comedians who are on television, who host these nighttime programs. Now, many people watch these nighttime comedians because they get their news and they can laugh and have fun. It's a great way to unwind at the end of the night. Now, instead of being funny, because politics is funny, just look at George Carlin, just look at some of his old work. He is hysterical. But you have to be honest. You have to be telling the truth. You have to actually be funny. You shouldn't be trying to push a political agenda. And unfortunately, what you saw in this election with many comedians in the media decided that it was more important to push a political agenda. You've seen this do with John Oliver, and you've seen this with Samantha Bee, and you've seen this with many people. So the first thing that many of these political pundits, as well as journalists and comedians, jumped to was race, instead of reflecting and saying, maybe it was Hillary Clinton supporting these wars for oil. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton flip-flopping on the TPP. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton playing a part in the destabilization of Libya. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton voting for the Patriot Act. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton voting for the illegal war in Iraq. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton's insensitive remarks to African Americans, calling them super predators that need to be brought to heel. Maybe it was Hillary Clinton supporting DOMA. Instead of people thinking that it was these things or these things played a role into why people decided to not vote for her, the first thing that these people went to was race. Samantha Bee, who has a late night talk show, I think on TBS, decided to blame white people for Donald Trump winning. She says, it's pretty clear who ruined America: white people. I guess ruining Brooklyn was just the dry run. The Caucasian nation showed up in droves to vote for Trump. So that I don't want to hear a goddamn word about black voter turnout. How many times do we expect black people to build our country for us? White people, this is the worst. And don't try to distance yourself and say hashtag not all white people. If Muslims have to take responsibility for every member of their community, so do we. Oh, does that feel awful? Yeah, 63% of white men said, if I can't be in charge, burn it down. And a majority of white women faced with the historic choice between a female and a vial of weaponized testosterone said, I'll take option B. I just don't like her. Hope you get your stickers, ladies. Way to lean out. So instead of the American people worrying about the issues and how Hillary Clinton's policies would possibly affect them, it was sexism that drove these people to the polls, according to Samantha Bee. This is the kind of belittling and the kind of arrogance that you've seen many journalists and you've seen people in the media display. It seemed like many of them just had an abject disgust for the average Joe. I was reading an article from the New York Times, which just had atrocious work this whole election cycle and continues to discredit themselves, and this is why their paper is continuing to go down. But they wrote an article that says, can the media recover from this in regards of the election? And some of the points that they made was that because of Twitter and because of Facebook's fake news and Donald Trump's meme army and the press corps trying to be fair and balanced and people going easy and not properly vetting Donald Trump, this is why he won. One part of the article states that Pani Wozik, apologies if I pronounce his last name wrong. His last name is kind of odd. He writes that this election has exposed a lot of bubbles. He says that Chuck Todd this morning writes that if coastal journalists were more in touch with economically hard-hit areas, they'd have seen the Trump phenomenon coming. As a Southeast Michigan native, I'll give him that. But I would add that a more diverse press corps would have been less likely to deflect so much of the overt racism, misogyny, and anti-Semitism on the campaign trail as economic anxiety. And it wouldn't be so quick to equate working class with white. And that is the fallback of every single one of these people. Instead of actually reporting on the facts, instead of thinking that many people were truly driven to the polls because of economic hardship, which is affecting them, that people were driven to the polls because they didn't want to see a woman become president, and they didn't want to see their country run over by illegal immigrants. Now, I'm not discounting that. That may have driven some people to the polls, but do you think 55 million people plus, did that drive every single one of them to the polls? No. And to try to claim that that's what drove white people to the polls, was because they didn't want to see a woman president and they wanted to stop their country from turning brown, is ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. You constantly calling people racist and shaming people in the mainstream media, especially on the left, has been doing this for a year. Drove people to the polls. The overt political correct era that we are living in, where you are constantly bashing white people for everything, constantly claiming that everything is sexist, misogynistic, transphobic, everyone has a secret agenda, is probably what drove people to the polls as well, because they are tired of it. And when you have journalists, or so-called journalists, I call them propagandist artists, engaging in this and in writing this and they're working, instead of truly reflecting on what happened in this election and why they didn't foresee this coming. This is why you will continue to lose relevancy. This is why they will continue to go down the drain. The television media is what the radio is now. Nobody cares. Nobody listens to you. You have online journalists. You have alternative media. You have people in 4chan and Reddit doing better jobs and investigative journalistic work than any of these hacks on television. You have whistleblowers, Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, um, Edward Snowden, WikiLeaks, for God's sakes, doing better work than any of our journalists combined. Not saying that there aren't some really good people in the media, but it's rare and few to find them. And this is why the mainstream media will continue to lose relevancy, because they don't understand it and they try to shift blame and not realize the part that they played. When you had multiple newspapers, every single one writing hit pieces. Now, as I said before, you can be critical of Donald Trump. I don't care about that. You can criticize him all you want to, and he should be held for the account of things he has done. He should be held for account when he is constantly lying or flip-flopping on issues that he supports. That's not my problem. My problem is when you have a media being blatantly biased and then claiming impartiality. That is the problem, and people saw this. They saw right through this. For months, you had the political and media elite, both on the left and the right, because please do not get this confused. There were many people on the right bashing Trump to all hell. Fox News was bashing Trump to all hell. There was only a few shows that were supporting him. Megyn Kelly at the forefront of all this. You can all watch this. Now this will go down in history. Now, if you take a look at the Bernie movement as well, because this plays into what has happened in this election, they were bashing his supporters as well, calling them idealists, calling them stupid, calling them basement dwellers. Well, that was Hillary Clinton. Not giving them the credit that they were due. Same thing on Donald Trump's side. They were calling them stupid, ignorant, racist, xenophobic. And this was the media who was doing this blatantly on television, having an abject hatred for the American people. They did not like that people on the left and the right were breaking from the script, breaking from the narrative that they put forth, and going their own route. Now, what you saw, both on the left and the right, is a rise in alternative media. What you saw on the left and the right is people combating these lies with facts, with sources. They were going on social media, they were engaging with people, they were building a coalition so people can find out truths. What you had was people going through the WikiLeaks and looking at these emails that Hillary Clinton and the things that she was doing, as well as John Podesta. What you had was people becoming their own journalists and finding out information that the media was actively trying to bury. And this was going on for a year and a half. This was happening. So there is a blame to go around in the media because of what they did. And what you see now is them actively trying to pass the blame onto the American people. How did we let this happen? We didn't do anything wrong. Now, there are some people who are being reflective and looking like, hey, we missed the mark. There are other people who just still don't get it. Now, I want you guys to take a look at this clip. Now, on one of my videos of media collusion, I talked about how MSNBC and the Clinton campaign, as well as the DNC, were working together. Now, it seemed like Chris Matthews basically went off reservation and told the truth about why Hillary Clinton lost. And I'm going to show you guys this clip right now.
Trade, immigration, and wars, I think he's on the popular side of. I think the country hates all these wars. The establishment in both parties has been supporting those wars, including Hillary. The fact we don't have an immigration system that we enforce. Business doesn't want one because they want the cheap labor. Democrats want the jobs. I want the votes. Nobody's gotten it together. In terms of trade, the fact is, a good part of the states we're looking at tonight, just drive through Michigan, drive through Wisconsin, and you'll see places that are hollowed out. There's nothing left. There used to be a Blockbusters movie place to get videos. Yeah. They're gone. Now nothing's left but the diner. That's all that's left to hold the community together. And Trump said, you know what? I think I can run against this stuff. And he put it together. And I think it was a legitimate campaign on those issues. I mean, I never heard Hillary railing against these stupid wars. I never heard Hillary railing genuinely against these trade deals. She came out against TPP at the very end, and nobody really believed it. And I never heard her really come out for a comprehensive immigration program, which included enforcement on illegal hiring, and actually put it together. Sure, she went out and got Latino votes, but did she ever come out for a sound, workable, progressive, enforceable immigration policy? No. So people saw
she did. She actually did have a comprehensive immigration policy.
Where was she on enforcement?
She was all for the Obama part of the enforcement.
For it? Did she ever campaign for it?
Yes, she did.
Did she ever campaign for it?
Yes, she did.
When did she talk about E-Verify? When did she talk about it?
This is the one issue where she stood up to what people said she had to say to the Latino community, and they wanted her to step away from Obama
continually, and I never heard her come out for the strong elements in a comprehensive immigration program. She thought she could get all the Hispanic vote without paying a price. And if you're going to have a law that works and you're going to enforce it, you have to pay a political price. And I never heard her do it.
That's what she campaigned on, was a comprehensive immigration program.
She didn't campaign on. She said the word.
No, she campaigned on it, Chris. She did. What she didn't do was say build a wall.
No,
and Mexicans are rapists.
Did she say anything about? Did she ever say stop illegal hiring in this country? Stop illegal immigration in this country? Did she ever say it?
That was her proposed policy.
I never heard her come out against illegal immigration. Did you?
You think she should have run?
Did you ever? No.
She should have tried to get to Trump's right on that issue?
No, I think the country's against illegal immigration, and it's a serious bit. I've never heard a country that didn't have a border, didn't have a work permit, didn't get serious about it. And I think that business wants the cheap labor and the Democrats want the votes. And that's why you know what the solution to the immigration problem is? What we have right now. That's what the Democrats want. That's what the Republicans want. What we have right now, this Michigas, this craziness. And I think that Trump took advantage of it. And I don't think it's racism.
I have two tests.
The way he did it was, but I don't think the issue is.
The way he did it was. This is
the way he did it.
Part of how he did it.
Well, if you have people who were honest like this during the campaign, who spoke openly about this, issues on immigration, issues about trade deals, issues about the wars we have going overseas, issues about our relationship with Russia, people in the liberal media. Because let's face it, more people listen to the left than they do to the right. More people are left-leaning. Now, if you would have had these people being open and honest and not just shilling for one political party, then you maybe would have had a different result. I don't know. But this is what you have. Now, people are doing this now, are calling these things out now that Hillary's lost. But where were they during this whole year and a half when this election was going on? Where were they to hold everyone's feet to the fire, to hold each and every single one of these political candidates to the fire, to make sure that we know exactly where each and every single one of these candidates stand? They were nowhere to be found. Many journalists decided that they wanted to get wrapped up in the Clinton machine, and they wanted to shill for Hillary Clinton. Other journalists who even weren't Hillary Clinton supporters decided that it was their civic duty to try to stop Donald Trump, and they were going to throw all objectivity out the window and try to stop him because they thought he was the second coming of Hitler. This is what you had, and many people in the media, from the Huffington Post, Mother Jones, the Washington Post, New York Times, and many others, building stories that Donald Trump is racist, that everyone's misogynistic, that everyone's going to be deported, that black people were going to have their rights taken away, abortion rights were going to be taken away from this country. So much stuff. Now you have millions of people protesting a democratically elected president because of what these people have done. I think the takeaway from this is the mainstream media is dying, and I hope that this election is a wake-up call to all of the things that they are doing wrong. Do I think that they will learn a lesson? No, I don't think so. But I think the one good thing that came out of this election, and the fact that the media has completely disregarded the American people, has talked down to us, and who has degraded us and belittled us and insulted our intelligence. I think the alternative media is booming. It's rising because people have decided that they have had enough and decided to take matters into their own hands. And I think it's extremely encouraging. You see a boom from the left and the right. And I know for myself that I'm glad I can be a part of this new alternative media. And just some people who just did tremendous work in this election. I just have to thank them so much for the hard work that they did. H.A. Goodman, Tim Black, Lee Camp, Debbie from the Sane Progressive, The Humanist Report, Tim Pool, just to name some people on the right who actually did amazing work as well. Stefan Molyneux, Mike Cernovich, Paul Joseph Watson. They did amazing work throughout this election. And I can't forget the people who are on 4chan and the people who are on Reddit, just constantly going through all of these WikiLeaks, putting information together, because that's real investigative journalism. That's citizen journalism at its best. Sticks, with his amazing analysis throughout the entire election. Amazing work. I think we are the people who are going to take back our media. We're living in an age of social media where people are able to spread information around quickly. Yes, disinformation gets put in there as well, but we're able to kind of discern from that very quickly. So I'm the Millennial Revolt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.